I left a company where I was the female founder in tech, which is hard to do. I felt like I was letting down every woman in tech while I wrote this, this like resignation.
Hey everyone, you're listening to Superwomen. Today's guest is the incredible Ara Katz. She is the co-founder of Seed, the most amazing probiotic, symbiotic, prebiotic, everything you need to feel good, really heal your gut.
This life inside me wasn't viable, but the life I was living was not viable.
They slap that label on everything. A probiotic gummy, a probiotic mint. There's no way. It's like when they say a potato is gluten-free, you're like, duh. We talk a lot in this episode about changes in career, what led to Seed, what also led to changes in her role day to day, and how to manage people. So take a listen.
What are you looking for? Are you looking for validation, or do you want to make great work?
Oh, I think a generation that's been raised in bubble wrap that can't take any bad feedback.
Absolutely. Getting a little wiser and having some scuff marks. You end things that aren't right earlier.
I'm Rebecca Minkoff, and this is Superwomen. Each week, inspiring women are interviewed to uncover the unexpected journeys, the challenges, and the unwavering spirit that makes them powerful. Get ready to be motivated by stories of resilience and discover the keys to unlocking your own potential. Ara, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today. I'm a super fan. I am a super consumer. I'd say half the supplements I take are Seed.
Thank you. I'm especially excited because I've known you through many seasons of both our lives.
That's right.
Since we were kind of babies starting.
Series, right?
Summit Series. Yes, that's right.
That's wild.
I'm
So
really
fun fact, at that Summit Series, the cruise one,
yeah,
I was 5 months pregnant. It was obvious. And there was a gentleman in line as we were checking in, and he was nice, making conversation. I was like, whatever. And then cut to that night, the band was performing and we're on the dance floor, and he comes up to me and he like propositions me. I'm like, I looked at him, I was like, I'm pregnant. And he was like,
my experience of Summit Series tells me, very similar to like a Burning Man, that he probably wanted you more because you were pregnant.
I was so
He's probably
confused.
open to all spectrum of experience. That's amazing. That's a good story.
Amazing. It was a really funny story. But I met my doula on that trip too, Latham.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah. She helped birth 3 babies of mine. So that was a really special experience.
I met some of the most meaningful people in my life through Summit Series. They didn't birth my babies, but they did birth ideas with me, and certainly like many beautiful experiences that kind of came from that.
Yeah. I remember when you guys first gathered on stage, it felt like summer camp. And I was so yearning to go back to that innocence that I was like, I think I should quit what I'm doing and go join them.
Yeah.
Like that camaraderie, that what you're building, that was really beautiful.
I think that like the wide-eyedness and like purity of Summit, of how it started, and aspects of community and aspects of just like shared people who don't even see the top of mountains.
Yeah.
They just see sky. I think it's something that is so needed today, because I feel like it's so easy to see our limitations.
The sewage in our streets.
The sewage. So easy to see all of it. It was such a beautiful like lens on the world.
Yeah.
That I think is so needed. I've always kind of kept that with me in my pocket, and it's something I'm very grateful for to this day, even though Summit has now ended and it's what it used to be.
Yeah.
As all good things should.
Yeah. Was that where the idea for Seed was forming?
No, I think I would say that the feeling, because I'm not a scientist and I'm not a clinician, and my co-founder, of course, extraordinary scientific mind, and all the people around me have those profiles and many more PhDs than I do. I think that the boldness that kind of comes from that ability to say, and especially at Summit and also throughout my career, I was exposed to people who I don't even know if they ever were like, oh, I'm not a scientist, so I can't start a science company. It was like the words aren't even in my brain.
Yeah.
And so I think that there was certainly, I would call it like an accelerant. Summit was a piece of wood I put in the fire, like a big one. The one that you kind of, when you're making a fire, there's that one that you're like, that was the one. And I think that, and the community, and just watching all these people who literally change the fucking world off of tiny ideas, I think that's where that kind of like, I don't even know that I shouldn't start a science company came from.
Yeah. So when you finally had that idea, and then someone outsider said, but you're not a scientist, like how did you even know where to begin?
So C was interesting because, I was building, and actually when you and I were probably in most proximity, I was building Spring. that was a mobile commerce company, and it was amazing. Got to like launch Apple Pay. We got to and it's interesting how much of our lives, at least for me, I'm a builder and a creator, but I think as you get older, you start to say, why am I building and creating these things? And Spring was so interesting because intellectually it's a very interesting exercise, and it was the beginning of e-com, and there was like exciting pieces of it. I love tech, I love storytelling, I love being at the beginning of things, and it felt like that. But at the end of the day, like I am not actually a shopper. I actually don't care about these things. And it was very interesting because I had a miscarriage. And as a women in tech, I said this life inside me wasn't viable, but the life I was living was not viable.
Right.
I was going back and forth, and I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And miscarriages are, to me, very beautiful biological miracles, although they can feel very sad, but they are wise in many cases, and they're expressions of a kind of wisdom. And it felt like that.
Yeah.
And I left a company where I was the female founder in tech, which is hard to do. I felt like I was letting down every woman in tech while I wrote this, this like resignation.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like we think about like where we're heading, but actually sometimes it's just about kind of coming back to yourself. And I've loved science and health since my mom died in high school. That's when I started reading scientific papers, and I became quite obsessed with how we learn about our bodies and how we make decisions. And the most interesting thing about watching someone die is that they will gather data from anyone. It can be a shaman, it could be an oncologist, it could be some guy in Germany who has something, because when you know that the end is coming, you'll try anything. And I became very interested in that. My mom was enrolled in clinical trials, and so how science kind of makes its way to humans. I just became that person over many years that people would ask about, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And it wasn't because I could read science, and also just because I could kind of like see who the people who were doing real stuff was. I kind of held that obsession, although I just never did anything with it. And an ex-boyfriend was in pharma, and so I got to understand how drugs were made. My godmother had married one of the biggest drug hunters in the world. He's like,
drug hunter?
Yeah, it's a word for like mad scientist who makes cancer drugs.
Wow, it should be a movie, Drug Hunter.
There's probably other people that would use that term too, but I just never was like, could that be what I do every day? So right after I resigned from Spring and had the miscarriage, I got pregnant very shortly after that, although I wasn't married to my now husband. I met my co-founder, who was introduced to me, who was like starting some like crazy plant compound company. And I met him, and I was like, wow, you're one of the first people that I've met in all my years of studying and looking at science that actually can translate it, not just into words and the way you talk about it, but actually into applications of it in a way that I felt was really compelling. And he was just an extraordinary human. And so we spent a lot of time during my pregnancy just talking about what it would look like to create something. And he had come to the microbiome since 2006. He'd been tracking some of the early mouse studies.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting. The field really blew up, like most scientific fields blow up. One is when you start to see that an aspect of the science can either make you thin or make you look young. So these mice, they would transplant the microbiomes from one mouse to the other. And this was 2006. From their poop, they would do a fecal transplant. And you would see the old mice would start to have markers of younger mice and beautiful, like more plush skin. The metabolic health of the mice, you would take a lean mice's microbiome, put it into an obese mouse. The obese mouse would get lean, the lean mouse would get obese. And so that's when the field really popped off.
Right.
I don't know what that says about our culture and society, but that's when the field popped out. So he'd been studying it, tracking it for a long time. I had been tracking it more from the perspective of, the consumer wellness world, which was gut mania. I could start to see the very early tailwinds of gut obsession.
Yep.
Also, probiotics were starting to grow. I was looking at it and I'm just like, but there's no science.
Right.
I was like, where's all the science? And it was interesting because Silicon Valley got excited about microbiome for a second, then they weren't excited because they looked at it from more of a biotech drug perspective, but It was like really too early. And so I just saw this opportunity to take this kind of like biotech, kind of pharma, of really nerdy scientific approach to a category that was like the Wild West.
Yeah.
The term probiotics wasn't regulated in the US. It is in Europe and other places. And people were starting to buy and consume things for gut health. And I also didn't think there was a brand or a company that was stewarding the future of the field.
Right. Because now it's like they slap that label on everything. A probiotic gummy, a probiotic mint. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. It's like when they say a potato is gluten-free, you're like, duh.
I was in a health food store many years ago in Florida. And I remember I was watching the guy go through the produce section. And he was taking these gluten-free stickers and putting them on bananas. And I was
Oh
like,
my
do
God.
you know? He's like, yeah, I know, but people will buy it more. I was like, all right. But it just says to you kind of the, the state of kind of the consumer awareness. And I thought, okay, it's not that anybody is stupid or uninformed. It's that it's a really new field.
Yeah.
From a marketing perspective, because of regulatory in this country, you can get away with it and say anything's a probiotic if it has bacteria in it, which is not true. So I thought there was a huge opportunity to be the real steward of the actual scientific definition. With my co-founder, I knew that we could develop what I would consider probably one of the best probiotics that exists today and globally. We took a really different approach. We had a really different scientific approach. And then, of course, went into clinical trials. And the thing that people come up to me all the time and say, and everywhere in the world that I go, is, this product changed my life.
Yeah.
And so it really did come. I think for him, it's more of a scientific endeavor. And for me, I need to do something that's going to be so meaningful for me. And I need to make an impact in the way that I feel I could, and in a way that will also fulfill me.
Yeah.
Not just the impact that I make. And so Seed was born really out of this belief that the microbiome has this extraordinary potential and possibilities of transforming human health, which it does. And that started that trajectory, but it wouldn't have happened if I didn't meet my co-founder.
Right. Hey everyone, sorry for the quick pause. I want to share something really exciting. Superwomen has a brand new YouTube channel. It's still under construction, but big things are coming in 2026. You'll find past episodes, new episodes, and some bonus content I cannot wait for you to see. Just search Superwoman Media on YouTube and hit subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Okay, back to the pod. So just to clarify, because I want to make sure that everyone understands this, most probiotics don't even make it to the gut.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably, I mean, it depends. You're probably talking about, you're referring to probiotic supplementation. Because, a probiotic in a tortilla chip's not making it anywhere because it probably isn't there to begin with in any kind of meaningful way. One of the things that we understood was not only the diversity of strains in DSO1, there's 24. So understanding the diversity strains and what they do in the body, the appropriate dosage that they need to be administered in, but also the delivery, which is your microbiome is very, very concentrated in your colon, which is the end of your GI tract. So getting microbes, which are very fragile, and very sensitive. Bacteria and microbes in general are sensitive to light, heat, oxygen, moisture. All of those things are like death for microbes. So the ability to deliver the appropriate dose all the way to the colon was something that we felt was going to have and is a tremendous marker of efficacy.
Yeah.
Now, there's some nuance to this. This doesn't mean that all probiotics are worthless. Some of them do kind of overkill, and we'll just do by brute force, they'll put billions and billions and billions in. So of course you'll have some that will make it, but we really wanted to solve this with technology. And so we created a capsule. It was called a dry capping cap, because there's other brands that have capsules inside of capsules, but there's mostly liquid on the outside. The dry capping cap that we're able to do, the inner capsule is all of the microbes. And the outer capsule is our prebiotic, which is why we're called a symbiotic, because it's a probiotic and a prebiotic delivered together.
Okay. I'm happy to explain this because I honestly don't understand what a prebiotic is.
So probiotic is a bacteria, a microbe.
Yeah.
This is the scientific definition. When administered in an adequate dose, which means a dose that's been studied in a human clinical trial to have a specific impact, confers a benefit to the host, which is us, our bodies. And that's the scientific definition. Our chief scientific officer, who we founded the company with, wrote the definition for the UN WHO Committee on Probiotics.
Wow.
And it's very specific. And that is the definition that's adhered to by ISAP, which is a very nerdy global organization called the International Society of Probiotics and Prebiotics. He used to chair that. And so that definition, that is a microbe. That is a live it's a live organism that confers this benefit in a host. A prebiotic is a compound that either a probiotic, like an external microbe, or the microbes that exist already in your body, can use either for food, but ours and certain fibers and certain compounds are the food. So think about it as something that bacteria would use to thrive and multiply. Our case is the second type, which is compounds that microbes use to transform into other compounds that are beneficial for the body. So our prebiotic that's in the exterior capsule is called punicalgin, and it comes from the skin of Indian pomegranate. And the skin of Indian pomegranate has this compound called punicalgin that, when it is biotransformed by your microbes in both along the GI tract, so it's fermented. If you think about it, these compounds get fermented by microbes throughout the GI tract, and of course majority in the colon. into a compound that many people, if you're like in the longevity, biohacking, or even kind of starting, trying-ish biohacker, you may have heard of urolithin A. And that is a compound that is really associated with longevity and a number of aspects of cellular health. That's what our punicalgin is. So that's biotransformed into urolithin A in the body. The coolest thing about the prebiotic and being dry on the outside is that before you ever take the product, one of the things that it does is it almost behaves like a desiccant. So if there's ever any moisture exposed to the capsules, even just in transit or in your kitchen cabinet, it's going to start to draw out some of the moisture. So it keeps everything very dry, which is what you need. It also is dark brown because it comes from pomegranate. And also it's in a dark green capsule. So it's keeping out light. Obviously the capsule itself is keeping out as much oxygen as it can and keeping out water, as I said, because it can draw out the water activity. The coolest thing is that then when it goes into the body, it's like a buffer. It's sacrificing itself as it goes through the GI tract and getting fermented a little bit by the microbes along the GI tract, but also protecting the inner capsule so it can deliver the payload, so to speak, into the colon of the microbes. And it's really interesting. And we use that technology not just for DSO1, which is what we're most known for, which is our daily symbiotic, but we just launched probiotics, which are really our reimagination through the lens of the microbiome of a product for sleep and energy and the daily multi. That was really interesting because most people don't understand the role that the microbiome plays in vitamin production and the metabolization of various compounds that impact those biological functions. But your microbiome plays a huge role in how you make energy, how you sleep. And then, of course, in terms of daily nutrients, plays a huge role in how some of these compounds can be optimized for the body. We use the same technology to deliver in the inner capsule compounds for the gut, for example, that can be optimized for sleep or better sleep or energy or again, like daily nutrition. Think about the inner capsule is for your microbiome. And then the outer capsule are some of the compounds that are critical for your human part. For so many years, they're like, could you just make something like this? And could you do this? And we're like, well, we wouldn't do it unless we were really incorporating and understanding the role that the microbiome plays in these. And so we were able to use that same technology to be able to reinvent the daily vitamin and then also look at solutions for sleep and energy, which is cool.
Yeah. No, once I heard a podcast about people who take sleep medication to sleep, what actually happens and the lack of oxygen they get.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a self-fulfilling, I'm tired. It's crazy. The new year always wants to make me reset, but not in a dramatic overhaul your life kind of way. For me, a fresh start really begins at home. If better sleep or self-care is anywhere on your resolutions list, Cozy Earth is honestly the easiest place to start. I refreshed my sheets for January and it immediately changed how my mornings and nights feel. Cozy Earth's Baja bedding set is stunning. It's a full matching set, which makes the bed feel pulled together without any effort. The textures and colors feel like something you'd see at a high-end resort, and it instantly makes my bedroom feel calmer and more intentional. I've been using Cozy Earth sheets for a month now, and I'm obsessed. So much so that I actually texted my team completely unprompted about how much I love these sheets. Don't miss the Luxe bath towels either. They're incredibly soft and somehow make a regular shower feel like a spa moment. Those little upgrades add up. When your home feels good, everything outside of it feels more manageable. Cozy Earth stands out because this is real, lasting comfort, not something you have to replace every year. Plus, they offer a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty, so there's truly no risk. Start the new year off right and give your home the luxury it deserves. Head over to cozyearth.com and use my code SUPERWOMEN, that's SUPERWOMEN, for up to 20% off. And if you get a post-purchase survey, be sure to support my show and mention you heard about Cozy Earth right here. So you launched this product out of a desire to truly change people's lives. You touched on, well, now you're managing people. Now you're growing a team. And the expectations of that and the difficulty of that as you've scaled, I'd love for you to touch on and how you've approached it. Because for me, I thought in the very beginning, if I could nurture everyone like a mother and a therapist, that would be like the key to the culture. I was quickly disabused of that idea when I would get in the middle of two employees and trying to solve their problems, and then their manager would get pissed, like, why is Rebecca involved? Or hearing them complain all day about their personal lives, like there's something I could do for their personal lives, you know? So I'm curious how you've sort of navigated that path.
How we do anything is how we do everything. I'm a seeker, and so I'm always trying to better understand myself. And one of the things that I've really learned is that the traditional ideas of management, first of all, I don't come from an HBS background. Like I didn't do like a 2x2
Right.
and like tell everyone
Right.
about like the market opportunity of probiotics. I'm like, what about the possibilities of the microbiome for like all of the human and human environmental health? But I do appreciate those frameworks, and I appreciate that there are people who really deeply spend time understanding what motivates how people respond in work environments. And perhaps I'm just too much of a startup person. When you get to a certain scale, it's confronting, it's vulnerable. And if you are not somebody who's comfortable at 200 people, by the way, I'm not comfortable at 200 people in my personal life.
Seriously,
So
that's a lot of
there's
people.
no way that I would be comfortable. The Dunbar number is what, like 150? I don't remember if you remember that app Path from back in the day. My
I
friend
invested in Path.
Oh yeah. So Dave's one of my dear friends, and we talk a lot about how much energy and how big can we be. The answer is like we're not built for
No.
that, even biologically. So I'm kind of a weirdo in the sense, and anyone who's worked with me will know this, which is I'm really not the person to build a company where we're charting out your career and what do you have to do to get from here to there. My co-founder and I built a meritocracy at Seed that might feel very old school, which is do great fucking work and everything's waiting for you. I am the best manager in terms of and I don't even like the word management because I'm like a cultivator. I'm a good cultivator of ideas, of people's creativity, and I know how to get the absolute best work out of people. I'm also very collaborative. My co-founder and I are very similar in this way. When the co-founders are redlining documents directly and not just like giving feedback, that's very confronting for certain people. But at the same time, I say to them, like, what beautiful opportunities to say, like, what are you looking for from this? Are you looking for validation or do you want to make great work?
Yeah.
When you're led with ego, I don't think anything goes well. And it's funny because the people who enjoy it the least leave and then write me these long letters about what they've learned about themselves and how they really look back at their work at Seed and say, I did the best work I did. That death of like about being about like presenting in a deck and then having it ripped apart is not enjoyable.
No, but it's also, I think, a generation that's been raised in bubble wrap that can't take any bad feedback.
Absolutely. And it's funny because people who are my right hands say, oh yeah, I just got off a 45-minute call explaining the way you and Raj work to like someone new. There's one person I've been recruiting since about 2017. He just came to me and I think we're like going to finally work together. And he's an extraordinary piece of talent. And he told me, I didn't even remember this. Before we ever met the first time, I sent him an Excel spreadsheet of all of my Upward reviews that was unedited. And I said, just before we meet, I just want you to know what it's like to work with me. And he's like, that was the craziest thing. I was like, well, but you should know, like, like any relationship, like why would I show up on a first date and then lie about my last 5 relationships? Would we ever work well together? But it is not a style that works awesome for certain people and works well for people. But I've really come to appreciate it because I used to really like shit on myself a lot. And I just be like, well, I'm obviously just not a good manager. There are people who are amazing at a certain scale of organization. And I don't know if that's in certain organizations where there's need for more of the like validation and a little bit more of the here's where we're going, here's where you can go, here's what this looks like for you. I just don't know any other part of life where we get any of that assurance. So why would you get that assurance without doing great work? Like, what else are we here for? That is more my style. But again, it's not for everybody. And I've just learned that it attracts other people who are interested in that kind of work. But it also shows me what I shouldn't sign myself up for.
I think it's incredible that you've learned that about yourself and that you're open and honest about it with people that are coming in, because I think, you have your couple of interviews, you never know where it's going to go. And you're just like, sometimes you're like, what just happened? How did this person that seemed so great in this interview turn into a total psycho?
Well,
whatever.
The thing that's interesting about, the way that it's very similar, I guess, to dating or really any relationship that's at its beginnings is we don't hire anyone at Seed without doing work with them first. And I'm not saying that solves all things and that people can't be psychos. A lot of people are great on first, second, third dates, and it's the fourth where it falls apart. So that's possible. Or when you leave a toothbrush, everyone's like, what's happening? But the doing work together, I think, does help understand You can say all of the right things, and especially with AI right now, you can say more than the right things, but you need to be able to present your work and you need to be able to articulate your ideas. And for us, it's not so much about like, it's the quality of the work. I'll be super honest, like Seed's crazy. Like there's spelling errors. I've had multiple times where people lost the job and they were the only candidate because they just didn't spell check their presentation that they gave. But you tell people who you are in more than less in more than words. We've tried, you do get to a certain place like in life too, like where you have like your radar is like pretty dialed.
So you've gotten to a very different place more recently where you transitioned from CEO to being a chairman. What was that decision like and why? I feel like you learned finally like yourself and how to manage and how to cultivate. And then you're like, I'm going to, move on.
Oh, well, first of all, it was something that was like fairly well choreographed. The inception of it comes from knowing myself based on what we've been talking about. And also knowing what companies are, they feel like yours, but they are not yours and they are not you. And that's very, very hard for you. When you very hard for when your name is the company. Although many people have licensed and sold, and that's a whole undoing and unraveling. That's a process. I think for me, I knew a few things. When the time comes for Seed to possibly nest itself inside of a larger company or to sell, I should not be steering the ship at that time.
Yep.
I am a terrible employee, probably would be. Having your baby then given a new parent and trying to kind of not parent but parent. Right. I don't know if how that would feel, but I also don't think that I'm well suited for that. There is a point where you end up, I think, talking about EBITDA more than you end up talking about possibilities. And I think that at that inflection point in companies, I am not necessarily the right person to take something forward. Those are really important. Profitabilities, and these things are important if you want to build companies that are sustainable. My life's purpose is not harvesting EBITDA. That said, it was the choreography over a couple of years with this woman, Catherine, who is now our operating CEO. I got to work so closely with her. She got to learn a lot more about like science and the translation of science and my perspective on, just even what marketing and brand and all these things actually are. And so I think the beautiful thing is that when someone comes in to take a new role, it's because the company has evolved, but the role needs to evolve. It wasn't like I was being replaced or I was replacing myself. This is the next evolution. It felt much more like a baton pass. Yeah. It was very much like, okay, here's the next step. Very similar to how mothers become grandmothers. It had a real beauty to it. It was beautifully choreographed in terms of considering the team and considering all of our stakeholders and considering like my feelings and her feelings and everybody's feelings, and so I think in many ways we did what we always do at Seed, which was to do things very intentionally, very thoughtfully. That doesn't necessarily make it always feel easy, but it does feel like everything's being considered. And she is the right person to be running it today. She proves that every single day. She ran a board meeting yesterday, and I was just like, it's like watching, it was like watching a beautiful conductor, and very similar to a lot of the work that you're doing now, how beautiful it felt to pass something that like I created to a woman that I like respect and admires like so much, and also like forget like how insanely amazing she is and brilliant. She fucking cares so much. Like she cares like a founder cares, which is as you know, that's rare. You cannot hire that. And by the way, when I met her, this is a really important note in terms of hiring and just recruiting. She was introduced to me opportunistically and I wasn't hiring anybody. But when you meet somebody and you're just like, yes, I don't know what, but yes, like those are very important moments where it doesn't fit into an org chart. You don't even know where to put the person, but you're like, yes, you need to be here. And that is what happened. Ultimately, she did need to be here.
That's really, I'm sure, makes it so much easier for you to then find peace.
Absolutely. And also knowing that she's more qualified for what Seed needs to do today. And that I, as chairperson, can give, I've been looking at the Gap campaign that's running now. And I think the windows right now say, give your gift. I was like, wow, I'm in the position where I can just give what I'm good at. I can give ideas. I can sit with her. I can say, how can I be helpful? How can I be of service? I can say when things don't look right, don't feel right out in the world. She's so receptive because we laid out those rules and guardrails from the very beginning. She knows I'm insane about brand and about, so she's like, nothing's a surprise. And we worked together for 2.5 years. but there's a space and a way to say it that, and maybe sometimes, and, sometimes you cross your boundaries and you're like, I'm sorry. And she's like, do you know how much shit we're doing right now? Like, is this pixel important, But at the same time, we have an amazing dynamic to be able to have those conversations. And as I said, it's made easier. And the biggest problem with or the thing that I hate more than anything in the world is apathy. Yeah. She is like the exact opposite. And she's hired and built a team that cares so deeply. Yeah. That's all you can want.
It's refreshing. I think that after working with and knowing so many founders, it's like the founder who became the CEO can't vacate that position or else. And you've just shown that you can do that and it can be a beautiful thing and it can be a positive thing. And it's not a failure. Like some of these founders feel like it'll be a failure if I step down.
I think the
and
mark
I'm like,
of a great founder is knowing who and what and where and how and why. And also like
100%.
Not to make this, a therapy session, but although I'm sitting on a couch, if you stay in things longer than you should, that's a you thing. The greatest gift of getting a little wiser and having some scuff marks is that you end things that aren't right earlier. Yeah. Who are you serving and what are you serving in staying? That was a no-brainer for me. But it was, I'm making it sounds awesome on a podcast, but like, no, it was like eviscerating, right? Like Seed is me.
There's definitely hard times.
I was like, I wrote every word. It's like these things are hard, but it is a beautiful process to teach your heart and train that muscle of how you can still hold something, but it doesn't have to be yours and how it doesn't have to mean anything. It sets off almost always. It's easier for me to say this now. If we had done this like 4 months ago, it'd be different. It's amazing to see the doors and the possibilities and what it opens when you close something. And that's been like revelatory for me since April.
After I had my third and I got back from maternity leave, we did a very big shift in the org where I no longer had 18 direct reports. I had one, and I wasn't deciding the Pantone color of the denim anymore or the exact rivet. And I went through like 5 months of like an identity crisis. Like, who am I if I'm not doing this? Simultaneously, but from that came Female Founder Collective. From that came this podcast. So I simultaneously hate the woman that instituted that, but also like I'm grateful because you never know where like relinquishing that control and that I can only let myself be called a designer if I actually picked the rivet. So going through that, I resonate with like it takes a minute and it's hard, but then it can unlock so many more things that are nurturing to you that you didn't even know were possible.
Yeah, I think someone should make like a club of like all the people who no longer choose Pantone colors.
The founders.
Because the no Pantone thing was like a big one for me. I am not choosing, background colors.
Recovering Pantones Anonymous.
Pantone pickers. Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one.
It's a small thing, but it's just a microcosm of like that general feeling of like why we get the title, what people think you're doing.
Absolutely. And of course, for you, you had like the eponymous piece to it, which was like, it is your name. Like that's your gene. So how could you not pick the color of your gene?
Correct. Yeah. And I'm like, there are not enough hours in the day to do all that.
Yep.
So what is next for you? What is next nurturing, the next phase of Seed?
Well, there's definitely this next phase of Seed that I get to steward, but in a very different way. Or I should say co-steward with, with our CEO and the rest of my co-founder and the rest of and who's now on the board with me and our team, which is really beautiful because it's like, retail and, being out in the world in different products and different places and different geographies, which is a crazy thing to be like kind of more watching from outside through the kitchen into the kitchen window than like, picking the Pantone colors. But so that's certainly a part of my work. I'm finishing a book, which we sold while I was CEO that has to do with the microbiome and women's health, but tried to write it in a way that more, I think, mirrors what maybe my own, evolution, which has been a really interesting challenge, especially amongst all the other work. And then I spent a lot of time in the nerd world of AI and really, I think, the future of health, which is where I've spent a good amount of time and really thinking about how do I take what I did with Seed, which has impacted millions of people, which is amazing. But I think there's some aspects of things that are coming now that can be at an even greater scale. Going back to what I said earlier, after my miscarriage, I realized taking frontier science and how it can be applied to changing the way we see our ourselves and how we're going to think about a new definition of health, because we're really not healthy at the moment. No matter how much what the trillions being spent in wellness, you look at the numbers and we're not healthy, and we don't live in a world that was built for our biology. And it's really,
right.
We're talking about like hair, dyeing hair and skin stuff and the world, the environments we live in. And it's really, I think there's a really beautiful opportunity to take the frameworks that I created at Seed and what I feel are ways that we can like make these things applicable in products and digital or physical. And I'm spending a lot of time thinking about the future of health and our health data and what does that all look like? I have created a bit of a little studio for me to kind of Steve Jobs myself. There's so many things that people are like, what's the best omega-3? What's the best this? And there's no answer that I have. And so I just kind of created a space where, very similar to how Steve Jobs created this Skunk Works group that ultimately made the iPod, I think was also a big part of making the iPhone, to just kind of make what I want. That's been really freeing.
That's so fun.
It's kind of, you going back to Pantones for jeans with crazy cuts that wouldn't scale.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So where can everyone find you, follow you, pre-order the book?
No, that's probably like a year away, which we'll let you know about. But I'm at Ara Katz on Instagram. I'm very uninteresting on social media right now. So I think the better thing is to follow at Seed, because we do make amazing content at Seed. It's incredibly educational and hopefully really informative and entertaining. That's nc.com, which is where you can read about all the products that I mentioned, talked about.
Awesome. Awesome. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have?
The only thing that I didn't say when I was talking about manage, I could say one more thing I forgot to say, which is, people always ask me, like, where do you like work from? Like, what do you come from when you think about like work and managing people? And it kind of sounds so cheesy, but it's really so true. Anyone who's worked with me would probably say this, is that I really come from a place of love. And I think when you do that, no matter how much it's hard and uncomfortable, you always know where you're coming from.
I love that. We had to do, unfortunately, some shifting within the organization over the summertime, and we had to lose some people because of it, because we were consolidating roles. And I led those meetings with love. I was actually leading them with crying, because I was like, it's not you. It's not your performance. It's like, and they felt it. And then they felt it when when you follow up and you're like, how can I help you afterwards? And I think it makes a huge difference.
When you do anything with love, you can't go wrong. It can't always go well.
No. Right.
But I don't know if you can go wrong.
True.
Thank you. It was so fun. Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching today's episode. Before you head out, I want to invite you to my brand new YouTube channel for all things Superwomen. It's a fresh space I'm building out for 2026, packed with past episodes, future episodes, and some special new content we're cooking up. Just search Superwomen Media on YouTube and subscribe so you're there for everything coming next. I'll see you over there. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, take a second to rate and review the show wherever you're tuning in. It really helps others find the podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Minkoff and at RM Superwomen, or for a slice into my personal life at Becky Minkoff. And don't forget to check out my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. See you next week.